Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wild Tangent channel. And this is number 19 on a new feature called The Q-Tip of the Spear. This channel generally gets at great theories, concepts, and discoveries that you probably aren't familiar with because they've been suppressed. The powers that be don't want you to know this information. And for the Q-tip of the spear, we generally talk about the last 24 hours or thereabouts of the InfoWar, just podcasts that I've watched and points of view that I've heard and my reactions to them. Nothing comprehensive, just, idiosyncratic. But I feel like I'm bringing something to the table that's not there. Um, there are quite a few points of view that I never hear expressed and never have heard expressed in the InfoWar in the 9 years that I've been more than 9 years that I've been paying attention to it. And so I'm going to spit some of that out. And so I think my take last time on the military operation, so-called, was about right. I think it's about over, and it's only over because it never happened. It did happen, but it happened years ago, and it's just being reenacted now. And so the reenactment is going to um, happen exactly according to pretty much the way Donald Trump says is going to happen because it already happened and he knows what the results were. Um, and if the results weren't good, then they wouldn't tell you about it. Um, but I think I also said that the neocons are being going to be tested here, to see if they jump all over the war bandwagon. And apparently that's happened. I haven't heard anything about that really in the podcast world. I did think that the independent folks on the tip of the spear, as opposed to the soft disclosure folks, their rivals, the independents, are some of them are former soft disclosure people, pre-soft disclosure, and some of them are just other people that went to some of those GARTs and so on. But they've kind of made a split because of a certain lawsuit that's going on right now, and some people took one side and some people took the other side, and it's a little unfortunate, but they seem to be kind of at loggerheads in a lot of issues. One, the independent group is more full control, and the other group, I think they dabble in full control, but they generally forget about the full control and they take everything at face value. And I don't think they really do it because they really believe in the face value, but they do it because they feel like it's their duty to do it that way, and that's what Trump wants them to do, or something. Um, but anyway, I thought that the some of the stuff for the independents today was pretty stretchy. I don't think they recognize. And in general, I mean, I appreciate both groups. Both groups have helped me tremendously, and I think that they've both helped the movement tremendously. I'm not. I'm nitpicking, or I'm not nitpicking, but I am just trying to provide constructive criticism. I'm not trying to tear anybody down because I'm just coming from a place that I don't think they've heard from yet. And one thing that I would say about kind of the stretchy stuff, especially with the numbers, um, I'm a numbers guy. I'm very gifted with numbers. I can do all kinds of math in my head. I know all kinds of patterns in my head. And but I also have studied, Jungian psychology, synchronicities, spiritual. It's spiritual kind of understanding that the nature of the universe. One of the, I guess, in the Kabbalion Hermetic philosophy, one of the seven core principles is the law of attraction. And numbers and letters both have like magnetic or gravitational qualities to them. And so one number is going to invite that same number into its proximity. And it's also going to invite like the opposite number, so opposites attract and likes attract. And so the fact that you're seeing a 17 or a 10 or whatever, it's not nearly as coincidental as you think it is. That's it. It's part of it's naturally, the universe is naturally coincidental. Coincidences are the norm, not the exception. And so for something to really be calm or something to be really significant, it has to be way the hell out in terms of standard deviation. It has to be way the hell out, certainly beyond, beyond 3, if not, 4 or 5 standard deviations. We need it to be way beyond 1 out of 100. It needs to be like 1 out of 1,000 before you can really think that it is significant in terms of, how many coincidences, does it take before you recognize that there's communication going on. Just, the real thing that just grabbed me is they were like, it's been 11,537 days since such and such a thing has happened. And those 5 numbers add up to 17. And it's just kind of like, first of all, if you have 5 numbers and you add them up, the chances that they're going to equal 17 is pretty damn high already. It's already the chance that they're going to add up to 17 is probably about 1 out of 10 already. So that's already, but even if it doesn't add up to 17, well, then you can mix the numbers up in a certain way and get a 17 out of it some other way. You can say, oh, well, it hasn't been 11,537 days. It's been 31 years and 5 months and 6 days, and that, and 7 days, 8 days, and that adds up to 17. Or, you can permutate the numbers around until you get a 17. They proved it to themselves a number of times in the show where it's like, oh, well, I thought it was on the 28th, but it was on the 26th. But since it's on the 26th, it's even more banger than it was when it was on the 28th. That shows you that these coincidences pop up constantly, and it's no big deal for them to do so. And I can see that the numbers, they can help, they can point in a direction, but they don't. You just seriously overrate the level of coincidentalness. Numbers and letters have magnetic qualities to them. The natural state of the universe is to be coincidental. It's not an outlier. It has to be way, way, way outlying for it to be an outlier. And then just the other point from the soft disclosure people, the guy who is CP is, he's the most insightful guy they have, but he sometimes He's like, we could be talking about productive things. We could be talking about what we're going to be doing and like how we're going to do this after, everything is said and done. But instead, we're complaining about um, you know, aspects of the info war, all the neocons out there that are cheering on the war, or all the people out there that are just doing whatever Trump wants them to do. No, not really. You could still be talking about those things. You don't have to engage with them if you don't want to. Just talk about those things if that's what you want to do. You don't have to participate. You don't have to. You're not a crusader that has to point out all these things to everybody so that they can. That's my point exactly. I'm a full control person. I feel like the war is already over. It's already been won. We need to move to the next step. And the next step is that there's a bunch of psyops that we're still falling for that we need to stop falling for. And the main one, or at least one of the main ones, is the Bible. The New Testament of the Bible is a psyop. And, we got to get there because certainly the 17th letter and Trump both know that this is true. They have been treating you like little kids, pretending like it's true, like it's Santa Claus, and they're going to need to be confronted with this information, and people are going to need to ask them, why have you been leading us along on that? Or don't you know this? Or like, what's going on with this? And figure out what their answer is. But it's a Roman psyop, and it can be proven very, very easily. But it basically is just common sense. The Romans had the greatest empire in the history of the world up to that point. At least the Western world, and they had full control, censorship, distribution, publishing. Nothing is going to be published in the Roman Empire unless it is under the auspices of the Caesars. And that includes the Gospels and the epistles and the apocalypses in the New Testament. Or the apocalypse in the New Testament, and really the other apocalypses in the Apocrypha and the Gnostic stuff. So they did all of it. The whole thing is a psychological operation, and it can be demonstrated if you open up your book of Josephus, War of the Jews, and compare it to your book of Luke, especially, but the whole all of the Gospels. Josephus is the author of the Gospels, very clearly. Whoever Josephus was, I believe he was a think tank of Roman intellectuals at the court of Caesar's palace. And this can be proven, and it has been proven by a number of different authors, that nobody in the InfoWar has mentioned over the course of 9 years. I have not heard a single word about it. That is super damning against the truthers in the InfoWar. Somebody needs to address this. I've been sitting here begging for somebody to give me any evidence outside of the Bible and also outside of the Roman elite intellectual members of the Caesar's court. Somebody give me some evidence that is corroborating the existence of Jesus. The only evidence is in the New Testament. And you could say maybe some in the Old Testament in the prophecies. But otherwise, there isn't any evidence. And so therefore, you're going completely on faith, which is completely opposed to the truth. And so you are not a truther. Basically, I'll say it right here. If you are a Christian, then you are not a truther. because there isn't any evidence. And a truther bases things on facts and evidence. If there are no facts and evidence, one way or the other, then maybe you could go by faith. But in this case, there is a ton of evidence against the existence of Jesus, which includes common sense. Maybe not the full existence of Jesus, but the stories, such as the virgin birth and the resurrection, the bodily resurrection, and all of the side stuff that was connected with the bodily resurrection, like the graves of all of the dead people opening and them walking out, and the darkness in the middle of the day, and all this stuff is, if you read it in any source other than the Bible, you would reject it as being mythology. But the Bible and the words Jesus Christ are an incantation for you. They put you in a trance that allows you to suspend your reasoning faculty and believe in things that are superstitions at best. And I challenge anybody to come up with any type of difference between believing in Christianity and believing in Santa Claus. They have the same amount of evidence. In fact, Santa Claus has slightly more evidence, because the meteorologist on Christmas Eve will tell you that Santa's sleigh was detected leaving the North Pole. So there's one data point of erroneous, albeit erroneous, evidence that that Santa exists. But it's exactly the same principle. Your big brother needs to tell you that this is a myth, and this is a fantasy, and you're going to get mad at me for saying it, and you'll be outraged, but eventually you'll recognize that I'm right when you grow up another little bit. And that's basically where we're at with that. And I stand by what I said, what I'm saying, and I hope somebody makes some comments about it and challenges it, because I'm not really trying to be right. It would be a hell of a lot easier for me to be a Christian and to to agree with what you said. If you provide me with good enough evidence, I will change my mind. Because again, it's just a lot easier to, for a number of different reasons, to be a Christian than to not be. Given that I'm going to be a moral person either way. But there just isn't any evidence. So you can't choose to believe something that you just don't believe in because it doesn't have any evidence to support it. You show me some evidence and I might change my mind. I'm not trying to be right. I'm just stating the point the way I see it right now. There isn't any evidence outside of the Bible and outside of the handful of the Roman elite intellectuals or Caesars who have commented about it with corroborating evidence. And even with them, and even with the New Testament, there's nothing for decades and decades until they say Paul was writing in the 50s. I don't believe that's true. It's all based on one comment that one point, which is that Paul had the opportunity to refer to the Gospels but did not, and so they just assume that that he would have had they existed. And so they say that the Gospels came after the epistles just because of that. And that's not reasonable. And I think it's clear to me that the epistles came out after that, in the years 100 to 110. And the major writer for the epistles was Pliny the Younger, who was one of the 5 Romans who has corroborated the existence of Jesus in his letters with Trajan, Emperor Trajan, from early 2nd century, which is good 75, 80 years after the events in question. That's the best evidence that there is. Okay, too much ranting. Sorry to keep you so long. Like, share, subscribe, contribute. Come back for the next episode of the Q-tip of the spear.